Hey, what is going on, guys? Ruder than Nell here, come back at you with some more batch tutorials. I'm going to get the Windows command line fired up. I'll bring this right down so you guys can see it, and we'll start working. Now, in this video, I want to introduce another pretty easy and simple to understand concept to you guys, because we're still early on in the series and we have to knock these things out of the water before we jump into more advanced, more difficult topics. But here, what we're going to be looking at is something called a variable. And a variable is actually something that will store information or data that we're trying to work with inside of our program or script. Now, you saw in the last video we were looking at data types and the sort of naming or the format, the sort of like the understanding or the form of the data that we're trying to store. We had numbers, we had, like, really in that case we had integers and floating point numbers, and then we had text, which was really like a string or a character. So let's try and apply this. What we're going to do is we're going to create a variable. Now, a variable is just something that stores that information. It can equal anything. And the thing is, it's called a variable because it tends to vary. We can change what this thing might actually equal or actually represent, and we may not even know what it represents. If we stored the user input, or what the user was actually typing into the program, if we turn that into a variable, we may or may not know what they typed in, but we still need to be able to work with it inside of our program. So that's why it's called a variable, and let's go ahead and create one. I'm going to call mine var name. We can call it absolutely anything if we wanted to. We could call it Doug, we could call it Tom, we could call it X if we really wanted to, like we're working in algebra. But to keep things simple for you guys anyway, I'm going to call mine var name. And now we use the equal sign here, which is an assignment operator. We're actually assigning something to this variable here. And let's say var name is equal to howdy. Now, howdy is a string, remember. We're typing in text for it here. But we don't want to actually use these quotation marks, because if we did, they'll actually interpret them. I'll show you in a few moments. But let's go ahead and hit enter, and let's show you what we're working with here. Var name is equal to howdy. But we're going to get an error because var name is not recognized as an internal or external command, operatable program, or batch file, because it's going to run right through the string that we've typed into the prompt. We're typing in the command, and when we get to var name, it's going to try and execute var name. But var name really isn't a program, it's the variable that we're trying to create. So in batch, you have to actually use a specific command or statement to actually create a variable. And in our case, this is called set. S-E-T. Now, following set, we're going to say var name, and we're going to set it to equal howdy. And that runs without a problem. Awesome. So var name is now stored, and we can call it back, and we'll retrieve the value that it stores, in our case, howdy. So let's go ahead and do that. The way we do this in batch is a little different. We have two percent signs, and in between them, we type in the actual name of the variable that we created. So percent sign var name percent sign. Now when we hit enter, howdy is not recognized as an internal or external command, operatable program, or batch file. Now you can see what we're doing here. Obviously howdy really isn't a command, but because var name is equal to howdy, when we replace this part here, the var name wrapped into 2% signs, it's expanding that variable. It's replacing the actual name with what it really represents, in our case howdy. So it's trying to run howdy because it's being replaced with it there, but it isn't a program or anything else. So let's try this with those quotation marks now. Let's start set var name. We can set it to equal. Oh, sorry. Set var name equal howdy. And now when we try and type this out, if we do var name, it'll give us howdy with those quotation marks in there. So it's not interpreting them. Even though this is a string, it's still going to interpret those quotation marks, but we don't really want that. So in our case, we're just going to use it plain old and simple without those quotation marks, and it'll interpret it as a string no matter what. So really that's all I wanted to show you guys in this video, though. I hope you guys are able to understand the concept of setting variables. So we can set variable to be equal anything, and now you're going to want to use those 2% signs around your variable name to actually get the contents or what that variable actually represents. So in our case, anything, and we can't really run that. So really that's all for you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. We're going to be working with variables a whole lot because they really are the core and the fundamental of programming. Without them, we wouldn't be able to create anything versatile. We really wouldn't be able to store the information that we're working with, and it would just plain old suck. So that's all for you guys, though. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next tutorial.